So what up, though? It's Dwan Dandridge, back and black with another episode of Speak for Yourself.
Back in black.
Back in black.
Back and black. And we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that. I like that. I like that.
Word.
Of course, we have Ken Elkins, Saginaw's.
What's happening?
Swollenness.
Right, strongest man.
And I'm back and I'm like really black.
He's really black.
He back in swole.
He started an organization called Black in Big Rapids, Michigan.
In Big Rapids, Michigan.
Okay.
So you know he back in black. And a very special guest, Eric Thomas. Long overdue to have you on Speak for Yourself with us. Thank you for joining us.
I just go wherever Dwan tells me to go. So Dwan tells me to jump in the lake, I'm jumping in the lake. I just appreciate him for asking me to sit on a big comfy couch instead.
No doubt.
You got to introduce, because like it's two Eric Thomases. So
there's so many Eric Thomases.
They always say ponytail Eric.
I'm mostly ponytail.
You mostly say ponytail Eric.
So
50% ponytail.
well, the way that we kick it off.
35% Facebook.
Right. He's gonna be clowning. You already see what it is.
Martez, this is the one we should have did with just me and Eric. The combination of him and Ken might be too much. But we like to have our guests introduce themselves. So for anybody out there that don't know Ponytail Eric, how would you, don't hit him with that. How would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
I always have the hardest time introducing myself because there's this balance between the what do you do and the what do you care about thing that I've been really at odds with. Yeah. And it's hard to describe because I do so many things that sounds fake. It sounds like I'm making things up. Mm-hmm. At this place, I've been introducing myself as a person that's just trying to be the most myself that I can actually be, right? Mm-hmm. If I can be as freely and joyfully me, that's who I am. If people ask, what do I do? Some people know me as a guy on the internet that talks a lot of mess. Some people consider me mildly controversial for reasons I still don't really understand. I was the chief storyteller for the city. Now I'm senior vice president at Invest Detroit. For external relations or communications, depending on which hat I'm wearing that day. I am a writer, a speaker, a designer, a bad musician, and a social media personality is probably the best, the bow. But it's weird, I don't know. I'm a dude from Detroit, man, that's just lucky. I consider myself incredibly fortunate. Because I should never have made it.
What do you mean when you say you're lucky, right? Because I know part of the brain behind, like, Eric Thomas. So, like, I don't consider you lucky. I consider, like, Detroit lucky, like, that you're here, right? And that we're able to benefit in different ways from, like, your brilliance. So how do you see yourself as lucky?
I just, I consider myself fortunate because I don't know if I would have risen to the heights that I have in other cities because Detroit's kind of flat. So it's allowed me to have roles like working for the mayor even though I don't have a college degree, right? And there's all of these kind of weird kind of scenarios that have happened based upon me being in Detroit. But I'm also just fortunate that the way that I communicate and the things that I talk about, society itself could have been like, nah, we straight on that. Like, we don't want to deal with that. Regardless of the way that I present it, I try to present my ideas in a way that are thoughtful and empathetic and are considerate of the world that I live in. But I do feel things that obviously don't fit into mainstream culture.
I get that. That resonates with me, of course.
And I would definitely classify it as like a really dope and brave creative. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, all those things you mentioned are all creative. You know, things that come from a creative brain. You know, and again, starting back when you was creating your own brand, when you were running your marketing or firm, you know, and just creating your own brand. I think how you've been able to launch that brand and, like you say, go work for the mayor's office without a college degree to get to where you're at now. And I accredit a lot of that to your bravery, right? I think when people see that and say, wow, he's not afraid to say what other people are afraid to say, right? Like Dwan has that same success because in certain spaces, well, in all spaces, but for certain spaces, it's important to those people to hear him say what he's gonna say, right? And so I think when people view people like that, like they're like, hey, I want them to be on my team, especially, you know, because I know they can make those hard statements. So
it's amazing what you can do if you just do you. Like the people that want what you have will find you, and the people that don't want will prune themselves. Like I would rather not. I'd rather not spend time with people who don't want who I am, because then you have to balance all this other stuff. You go into it under false pretenses, and you have to maintain the illusion of it all. And I'd rather be broke. I've been broke, right? I've lost a lot, you know. And it wasn't that bad. Like being poor is not that horrible.
it is.
It's not. Like
It
I've
is.
been like I remember being broke multiple times, getting eviction notices, and it's tough for sure.
Yeah, it's hard.
It can be tough, but it's not joyless.
You've been single for a very long time, though. You don't have kids.
Yes, on
And you
purpose.
was-
On purpose,
Yeah,
so that I could
So being
do that.
broke is a lot easier to manage when you don't have kids.
When you're not taking care of other people.
Yeah, when you're not taking care of other people.
But
right?
these are all decisions that I made on purpose, right?
Right.
I've made decisions that allow me to make decisions for myself.
There you go.
And that has a lot to do with relationships and children and people who rely on you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just work really hard to maintain my autonomy.
Yeah.
If I don't have that autonomy, then I have to make different choices.
I want to ask you something about being single, but I know Dwan got something else to ask you or talk about.
No,
further than that.
I mean, I can spin off of that, like, and sharing those sentiments, right? It's like being broke is of no interest to me, right? But if I had to choose between being an authentic version of Dwan or the authentic version of Dwan, and it meant I had to be broke at the same time, I'm probably gonna be just Dwan and broke at the
For
same
real.
time.
If
right?
I gotta
Because-
choose between being broke and integrity,
yeah,
I'm going broke.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff I have, I made.
Yeah.
So I can get it back.
yeah.
Like I could lose and
Yeah.
get back.
Yeah, especially if it's not like, hey, you have to stay there. And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why, like, I hear you say stuff in spaces, and I'll be like, damn, like finally somebody's willing to say like how they really feel, right?
Right.
I'm going to say how I feel in the space, you know, and we're bridge builders. I consider you a bridge builder at the same
Yeah,
time, but
both you are.
you're building the bridge on an honest foundation, right?
Yeah.
Not going to say I'm going to build a bridge and I'm gonna lie to build the bridge or
Right.
like dumb myself down or give you a version of myself that you're going to be
How about
comfortable
just keep
with,
your mouth closed?
right?
Like I'm not like y'all, and I mean, because what I mean by that is, I'm gonna keep my mouth closed so I don't be broke. I'm different. I'm different than y'all, right? But I value and I appreciate both of you. I actually admire both of you for that. But I'm not gonna do that, right? That's not. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm thinking this, but I ain't gonna say it because this might
Here's-
affect my
It's
bottom
not
line.
for everybody,
Here's
though.
the pushback, if I
Yeah.
will, because I'm not going to be upset with anybody because I know, like,
Yeah.
folks have responsibilities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bills, and those bills are real, right? But I think there's a couple things that happen. The one thing that's like lighter and it annoys the hell out of me is when I say the thing in a space with like, especially like white people with influence and decision makers, it's like their first time hearing this.
Every
And
time.
I'm like, whoa, I
Flabbergasted.
know some of the
Yeah.
black people that you know, and I know they feel this way.
Yeah.
But this is your first time hearing it. And sometimes those people are allies, and we send those allies out to advocate for us with bad information. So they're not even pushing for what we really need and want because we were reluctant to tell them the truth. You know what I mean? So that's some of the pushback I give, or things that I would like folks to say, I'm gonna stay quiet, to consider.
I get it. I never, people ask me all the time, Eric, how do we build a platform like you've built, and how do you get the access all the time? And the first thing I ask people is, what are you willing to lose to get it? Right? Like, I think there is this like cavalier idea that like you can just go out in the world, say whatever you want to say, and there is no cost, and it's just really cool, and all of a sudden people love you, and it's like a straight line up. And like, that's not real. I have lost a lot of things. I've lost contracts, I've lost access, people have closed doors on me, I've lost projects, I've lost businesses, I've lost friends, and I think you get to a healthy balance of understanding how to communicate things that are real in a way that are empathetic and honest, but suit the situation. I do think when you're like young, I went through like one of those, you ever meet a young person going through like the brutal honesty phase? And they're just gonna be like, you fat, and your clothes don't fit. It's like, yo, what? I went through that phase. And
I can see you going through that phase as a young man. I can definitely see you doing that.
Everybody that's not agreeing with you as a sellout. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Along the black experience. You know what I mean? Like I've seen like people there. I've been there. You know what I mean? Like in the early 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah.
I heard a quote one time that changed my life in the way that I approach communication, and it was, honesty without empathy is cruelty. And it was this.
I like that.
And it's like you can tell the truth, but also be considerate of who and how you're communicating it to.
Yep.
And that fundamentally changed how I frame things, because the goal is not to harm people in the ultimate pursuit of truth.
Right.
It is to share honesty in a way that people can absorb it. What is the point of saying all these things to advocate for your people if the only thing it makes people do is shut down?
Right.
Right. All it does is hurt everybody involved. It hurts the people that you're telling to. You white people don't understand this because you blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, great. Now none of us have anything. Great. We did it. Yeah. I got it off my chest and everybody loses.
Right. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
for what?
Exactly. There's an art and a craft to being able to do that. And both of you do it very well. And like you were saying I think what people got to do is, like you're saying, because everyone don't have that skill set either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that is a very delicate skill set to be able to speak the truth and speak in the truth without turning everybody off, your allies and your enemies, right? Your ops, as the young people say. You can use that in your next song, ops.
For sure. These ops.
These ops.
Yeah, like for me, and we can transition, but for me it's like caring about all the listeners. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm saying something that may feel like challenging, like part of it is like I care for you at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that, especially if we're talking about advocating for black people in spaces where, like Detroit, that you still have a lot of things in decision making, people sitting in decision making seats are white men, right? Like doing the work myself to where like, like I actually care about the white men too. You know what I mean? So it's like if I'm saying something that's going to challenge them and like make them sit in that seat of discomfort, which I would say that we often live in, right? Like it's not a seat that we sit in, we live in the seat of discomfort. But it's not because I don't care about them. I think that can come out in the way that you communicate, is that like I don't just want the thing fixed, I want you to be okay at the same time. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
It's because if you're sharing it, you're with somebody that you respect enough to tell them that. Right? Like, like there's no, like I'm not gonna have those conversations, at least one-on-one with somebody I don't respect.
Right.
You know, like who's not gonna take it in. Cause I was like, why am I starting to fight in an argument with a person that's not even worth my time to deal with in that context anyways.
Right. Where you don't even know each other well enough to understand each other's position. You know?
Just it's a waste, once again, it's a waste of our time and resources.
Yeah. Well, there was a real specific reason that I reached out to you and wanted to have you on and have a conversation, right?
You want to be on his next
I'm
video. Go ahead and tell him.
Bar for bar.
Yeah, that's true. You want to do a versus. You want to do a versus.
I didn't want to ask him on the show because he might say no.
He might.
You don't want to propose in public.
Say no. Say no.
Proposing in public will get you every time.
Right. Say no, bro.
No, I'm good. I don't want to. I want you to keep having successful, music videos.
Music
and
video
whatnot.
drops.
You don't want me in it. But it's on the video that we recently put out, right? That we recently reposted.
Black Leads Detroit.
Black Leads Detroit recently reposted a video that you did when you were in your role at the city of Detroit. And it was specifically the one where you asked me to talk more about my faith, right? And after posting that video, we got a decent amount of attention, but also I've got phone calls of people that will see the videos but not necessarily comment or anything on it. So you know how that goes. I been having some of these conversations. I'm like, hey, so they were saying that I was brave to openly speak about my faith in that way. And I told a couple of them, I was like, hey, I don't know if you know it or not, but it was an atheist that did the interview that you might know, you know what I mean? A proud atheist that asked me to come on and talk about my faith specifically. So I don't know if people know that you can have very different opinions about some things that are really important to you and still be cool and still be interested in each other's perspective, still respect each other, still care for each other, still love each other, and even want to share, invite me into your platform to share that part of me, right? So what made you want to have somebody that's one of those Jesus dudes talk about his beliefs,
yeah,
right?
Especially when he could have talked about Black Leads Detroit, he could have talked about this, he could have talked about that, but to pull the faith out and talk about that with your perspective, that is pretty big.
So there's levels to this, right? I grew up in church. I'm in Detroit, quite the Christian town. There's a bunch of Christians and Muslims and then 2.5 atheists, right? Being an atheist is an interesting way to be in a town as religious as Detroit, right? We got a church on every corner in this city. But my job as chief storyteller was to lift up the perspectives of the city, right? It wasn't about me, and the way I felt about the role, it wasn't about the mayor either, right? It was about who are the residents of the city of Detroit, right? And the city of Detroit is a faith-led town, right? It just is, and so if you want to have a structural conversation, it's hard to talk about Detroit without talking about faith, right? The gospel community is one of the strongest, one of the most mainstream. People around the world, when they're looking for gospel, they come to see Detroit. We have royal families, right?
Yeah, sure,
we have
sure.
one of the fastest growing churches in the country in Triumph. I mean, this is a real thing here. But beyond that, I think there is this, I think the thing that frustrates the atheist and non-religious community most about Christians or Muslims or anybody else who talks a lot about their faith is oftentimes it is in the position of judgment or persecution, right? It's this idea that because I am Christian, you can't do that, which is incredibly strange, right? It's what does you over there have to do with me over here? Well, because I can't eat peanuts, y'all can't eat peanuts. I'm not really sure that's how this works. But one thing I've always respected about Dwan is that his faith system leads to work, and that's really all you're called to do. Like I said, I grew up in church. I've read the Bible. I was in the ministry. Like I was about that life even as a little kid. And your job is not to do the judgment. Your job is to make the place for people when it's time for them to come to the Lord, right? Like your job is to make a place for folks to come to get respite and to find love and to be embraced by the word, right? Like that's your job. And Dwan has always seemed to be a person who is so thoughtful and so considerate and so empathetic that he's the type of Christian that one would aspire to be like, right? It's just like there's a real purity that, based upon the conversations, comes through some tribulation, right? Like you've gone through enough in the world and have made a decision to follow his life. It wasn't like, I was a kid and I was going to church and I'm in the church and it's dope.
Not my experience.
It's like I went through enough and tried enough and realized this is what works for me, and I'm gonna create a world where this has a positive effect on the world around me. And I think that's such a valuable conversation to have. I mean, the atheist community and the agnostic community and some of the non-religious communities, we give Christianity and Islam, frankly, a really bad rap for the atrocities done in the name of the faith, but we don't give you guys enough credit for all of the really positive things done. There are very few, like atheist homeless centers and atheist soup kitchens. Like, we don't really do that work for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are nuns and pastors and community of faith that get together to lift people up.
Yep.
And so if we're going to focus on only the negative thing, we're being as intellectually dishonest as we would be to focus on only the positive thing, right? It is just that. So that's how my framing is. And once again, I went through an arc on that. I started off very Christian. I went to this place where I was like, this doesn't work. I went to the place where I was very negative towards religion, and I like came out of that spin, and I realized that there are so many shades of this. If there is a way to support the positive aspects of whatever the inputs are, that's all I got to do. I can call out the nonsense, because I call out the nonsense once again on the atheist side too. I call out the asshole atheist. I try not to be that one where you just everybody who is Christian is dumb. That can't be true. It can't be true. There were too many incredibly smart.
That's crazy annoying. But I don't dive into like those conversations, right? It's like
it's silly.
I park on, and it's that thing that you pointed out was like, hey, I should live my life this way because of what you believe. Like, I'm in agreement. Like, that's not. I don't even want to get into like that. Like that's. I agree with you when you say that's weird. You know what I mean? Like live the way I feel and believe you should live your life, right? But I think for me, it starts and ends with what do I believe I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And if I think about the documented response that Jesus gave on like with the commandments being the greatest, it was like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor like you love yourself. So like that applies to me if this is what I believe.
Right.
So like that's my job, right? And I don't always get that right. So I sure don't have time to be trying to make sure somebody else is doing what I believe. I believe it, and I don't do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for me to be spending energy and saying, hey, you live like this, you live this life that I believe, and I ain't able to pull it off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
I believe in like being a living example of the thing that you want other people to do, right? It would be a lot easier for most people to go over and be Christian if Christians were living in a complete utopia, right? Like if Christians just did the thing Christians said they was about, that it looks
attractive.
It looks attractive. if you were as joyful and full of compassion and brotherly concern as it says you should be in the book, most people would do it even if they didn't believe in the thing. In fact, I know people who go to church who don't believe in God in that way, for the community aspect of it.
Yeah.
And if you just built the community, people would join the community, and then they would feel that love, and they would move towards it. One of the reasons why many people have moved out of the church, and this is a separate conversation from atheism, but one of the reasons is because of the nightmarish, judgmental hurt that they've experienced in those places, when it was never your job to hurt people to get them to come to the Lord in the first place.
Yeah.
Your job was to create an example, live by that example, and stick to it. If people just spend all their time focusing on that and not being mad at people over the shed, right, over the fence, it would be a totally different universe.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting. I know some people of different faiths. Actually, it's Jehovah's Witness, and it's just interesting. Like some of the things that I've heard had happened, like being shunned from the church,
fully shunned
because of adultery, right? So instead of working with me and helping me, you just gonna get rid of me? How does that help? How does that save
It's like
me,
when
right?
a kid is having trouble in school and you kick them out of school.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Right.
It's
how does that help the kid?
Or like a low-level offender, like you take a low-level offender and you send them to jail.
Yeah.
It's like, so I'm gonna go and learn how to be a real
criminal.
why don't you just bring me in house and give me some love?
And so that's like, I remember hearing, I'm like, where's the forgiveness part in? Like, so I agree with you there. And I think another thing, like the beauty of y'all, of Eric producing that story is, again, with what we're dealing with today, is just the ability for people to have their own opinions, their own views, their own way of life, but yet can still celebrate other people who have different opinions and views, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and we don't do enough of that. It's like, well, if you don't believe in what I believe in, screw you, right? And I remember one time me and Dwan had a conversation. I got really mad at Trump people at one time, because it was right after when he pulled out of when he was going to do his rally in Oklahoma on, it might have been on Juneteenth. It might have been something like that. And I remember just getting irritated, like, forget Trumpers and any Trump friend, I'm disowning. And then Dwan was like, well, why would you do that? We just had a good conversation about it, like, hey, like, in this statement that I created is, putting people perspective in a corner and not those people in a corner. You know what I mean? So
that's deep.
Thank you, brother.
It almost sounds good when you say it. Ken loves to jack your ideas.
So that's one of his words, but one of his sayings.
Because I am sure that I have ADHD. And my mind can shift to different subject matters. Y'all have to help me stay on track. But
sickness.
So Ken loves to jack your ideas. So he's just trying to say he just robbed me. But let me tell you a quick story that's gonna go off track. So we had our weekly meetings are on Wednesday, right? So last Wednesday I was like, hey, let's do this thing at our upcoming event. And basically it was like give away some more money. To some people that
feels right.
Were vendors. I'm just going to tell the whole story. I'm not trying to edit. So I was like, hey, we got this event celebrating black women. We're going to give away grants. Let's give a bonus grant to all of our vendors. And the team thought of in the conversation, it was like, well, we paying them, you know what I mean? So let's not worry about doing that. They good. We supporting their business. And there's a part of me that's like, get that and agree with that. It's like, entrepreneurs want customers. Entrepreneurs don't start businesses to get grants. Right. I get that. And we're a customer to them right now. But as Ken was one of the main ones that talked us out of it, was giving pushback. How come at the event, he come walk around like, hey y'all, we need to, you know what? Let's get him that.
Let's go to that founder.
He looking as if he came up with the idea and the whole thing, and he's championing it. And I'm like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, great idea.
Good idea.
When the Holy Ghost reaches out and touches you, right?
Thank you.
When you are convicted.
Thank you. I was touched. I was touched, brother. And something came over me.
He was
to
overwhelmed.
give those people $500. You know what I mean? To share it. You know what I mean? I may have heard it somewhere before.
Synthesized ideas from the ether.
Right. That is it.
Great day, humanity. I hope all is well with you all. This is your girl Uni from Sacred Walks by Uni, your CEO and founder. Sacred Walks by Uni is a healing foundation that offers several different healing modalities: yoga, meditation, massage therapy, and Ayurveda nutrition. We are here for the community for true healing and true nurturing. We are known to heal through our love, light, and happiness, not through our trauma. So if you're looking for a place to really dive deep internally into yourself and to fix all of the chronic pain that you may have within your body, your mental, and your soul, then this is the place for you. You can follow us on all platforms at Sacred Walks by Uni, as well as www.sacredwalksbyuni.com. Peace.
But yeah. So definitely, I think we need to have more of that. Of again, just people being able to let people be who they are, but yet celebrate them, right? And
people, we have been trained to believe that being different in and of itself is bad.
Yeah.
And I think that is the biggest challenge. Like just difference is bad.
Yeah.
And it's a weird dissonance because we also have been trained to believe that we are all a delicate, individualized snowflake, that everybody is as unique as all the colors, in human perception, but never stand out, because if you stand out, if you're different, you believe something different, you speak different, you eat different foods, it's inherently wrong.
Yeah.
And you can see it in the way that people have arguments.
Yeah.
Because they are trying to persuade people not to understand where they're coming from, but to admit that they are right.
yeah.
Yep. Yes.
And it's once again, phases that I've gone through, right? Mm-hmm. When you understand that your job in a disagreement is not to beat someone into submission, but to articulate your stance in a way that is deeply understandable, even if not agreed with.
Right.
Right. Then you communicate differently.
Yep.
And you also bring a different type of emotion to the disagreement.
Yeah.
The rage comes from trying to beat someone in submission.
Yeah.
Why don't you agree with me?
Yeah.
If you don't agree with me, you are an idiot.
Yeah.
Because I am smart.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I got
yeah.
to this point.
Right.
And I know it's right.
I know it's right because I'm smart. And if you are right, then I am dumb.
Yeah.
And the worst thing you could possibly be is dumb or wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? And so I can't be different. You're different.
Yeah.
We're right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an insidious, it's like a mind virus that's weaseled its way into culture, and it's not new. It is what societies are made of.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
the thing about it is that it is fundamental for humans to feel this way for society to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also deeply detrimental to anybody who is different for whatever reason. If everybody got to a green light or a red light and decided, I'm gonna do it my own thing at the red light,
We in trouble.
badness ensues.
Right. Right.
And so we have to figure out, which thing is worth fighting for. And I think that is the hardest part to have. Is it priority? My girlfriend and I have kind of an unspoken, is this worth the relationship? You know what I'm saying? There's quite a few things that we disagree on. But do I need to prove you wrong? Like, do I have to win at the detriment of our relationship?
Yeah.
And we need to lift that to society. Do I have to win at the detriment of everybody else?
Yeah. It's set tripping at its finest, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, I think that sometimes there's a pressure that, maybe oftentimes there's a pressure that if I agree with somebody that does not share these core beliefs with me, I am not falling in allegiance with the group of people that share this core belief with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, why does it have to be that? Why?
Yeah.
Why?
It's loyalty
Why am
over
I?
reason.
And,
Yeah.
it doesn't
Why
have
am
to
I?
be or.
Why?
It can
Why?
be and.
Why did you hear? You know what I mean? That I am not connected and rooted to this core belief just because I kick it with somebody that don't believe that.
Right.
So I had a friend of mine, older white dude, would identify himself as evangelical Christian, right? And this was back, kind of like height of Black Lives Matter. And he asked me, I think they had came out with some statements of their fundamental beliefs and whatnot. And he must have like read them, and I think they were circulating amongst like the Christian community. And he asked me, he was like, hey, what's your stance on like the Black Lives Matter thing? And I said, well, I mean, like Black Lives Matter as a statement, like I wholeheartedly believe, and I feel like everybody should, but you know what I mean? That's where I'm at with it. I was like, now if you're talking about Black Lives Matter, the organization, the movement, there are things that I stand in line with them lockstep, 100%. I was like, but there's also some things that like they probably believe in that I wouldn't agree with, right? I was like, I don't have a problem with standing with them where we believe and when we're fighting for the lives of Black people, you know what I mean? I was like, I know very well how to connect with people, work with people in a space where we share like the same beliefs and agreement, and then say, okay, when you're doing that thing that we don't like see eye to eye or we're not together on, I can step away and let you do your thing and I step away and do my thing. I was like, do you know where I learned that from? Where? I said, working with white evangelical Christians. I was like, I've learned how to do that very well and navigate that very well. Like there are things that like we strongly believe in, especially as it relates to like Jesus, you know what I mean? There's some things that we just definitely are not in line on, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
That don't stop me from believing in Jesus because we disagree on some of these other issues very strongly, you know? And I think that that's, you know, kind of where I find myself at. But I just appreciated being able to have a nuanced conversation with people and like hopefully like open up somebody's mind to say, man, we can still kick it with people and respect people, value people in a way, and not agree with them on every subject matter.
Yep.
Yeah, it's it's always important to know where that line is too, right? There are folks that you agree with on most things and disagree with on some things that you can align yourself with them and not with all their values. There are also certain people who, you know, a broken clock strikes right twice a day, right? Where like Candace Owens, Jordan Peterson, some of these folks who are like, Candace Owens in the middle of a rebrand, Jordan Peterson is, for the most part, a lunatic, except for sometimes, because he's a brilliant man. He's a very smart guy. I just don't agree with his fundamental framings. I watched him talk about economic development around artists and creatives. Wholesale agree with the statement that he made on it. That's great.
Right.
I'm not aligning myself with Jordan Peterson.
Right.
Right? And on the flip side, there are people that I know very well who 90% of stuff that we agree on. 10%? I'm straight on that.
Right.
But I still rock with you.
Right.
And you should know where those things intersect. This idea, like once again, loyalty is such a dangerous concept to me. And I know people always like, it's loyalty over everything. But there's this thing, we get into this thing where folks become more loyal to the people and the entities than reality itself. You know what I'm saying? Like people are so loyal to Kanye and Diddy and R. Kelly and all these other kind of folks that they just stop looking at reality. They were like, well, R. Kelly made the song at my wedding, so I gotta defend him. You do not. Liking step in the name of love does not mean you have
Right.
to defend a predator.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
And people have a really hard time separating those things.
Yeah.
Right. And that it's something that we as a society and we as a people have to get better at. Because we're learning more and more about people every day. You used to just not know what people did. There was plausible deniability. I didn't know that this person was a savage.
Right.
But like, and
Now
you
you-
are
now I
in
see it now pop
2024.
up. Yeah.
You do some wild stuff in 1997. We gonna find out about
Find out,
it,
yep.
and then we gonna have to reckon with that.
Yep.
Exactly.
Now it's interesting though. With that being said, backing up to something I heard you say when you started that statement, to where us being able to accept when someone else agrees with someone's views, and I'm gonna say it directly. So say like Trump supporters, right? Go back to that, right? So for me, I'm like, I struggle with, like, cause I got a neighbor who got a Trump sign up. So I struggle with that. Like, dude, how the hell do you? Martez was just over my house the other day and we was talking about it. And I was like,
That's why I don't live out there.
But I was like, but I gotta get. But I said to myself, I said, but automatically, I'm already said that this dude is a racist. When he could just agree with some of his, some of Trump's policies, or
Most of those people are just afraid.
and they benefit him, that person, or whatever, right? But I'm automatically not liking that person.
Right.
I'm automatically making
Haven't
judgments
spent
about
any
him.
time with him.
I haven't spent any time with him, right?
Yep.
And so I had to say, to where, especially with politics, it's hard to say, okay, because we always say, well, how can you vote for that person when they believe in all of this bad stuff? But because their interest, because of what they do believe in aligns with a little bit of your interest, you vote for them anyways. I think we struggle with that. I know I struggle with it big time, right? But it should be able just to say, no, it supports your interests, and that don't mean you are a racist, or that don't mean you are this and that, right? But I think we have a problem doing that.
Most of those folks are radicalized into racism because we push them into the margins. Right now, politics is a game of fear, on the left and right. I think more on the right, it's a game of fear. Now, most people who are Trump supporters, whether they would admit it or not, are deeply, deeply afraid that they're going to live in an America that has no place for them, right? That everything is moving so fast, and they don't have time to keep up. And the only way that they can hold on to some semblance of not only power, but just stability is if somebody can stop the clock. And Trump came out here and said, you know what? You're right. This is all getting a little weird. I don't like pronouns. You don't like pronouns. There's too many Mexicans. There's too much of all this stuff. LeBron James is getting tax incentives because he's black. And you're a poor white guy, and you deserve something too. And that's a reasonable argument to make. If I was a 45-year-old white guy with a 12 to 19-year-old white son or something like that, and everybody was, and I was watching TV, and an NBA player was making $300 million a year, came on TV and said, white folks are ruining my life, I would be annoyed as hell too. I would be really excited to see somebody like Trump get out here and say, actually, they are taking from you. And everything you've ever feared and all your suspicions are confirmed. I'm a person in power, and I'm telling you that these people are bad. Because I'm one of them, and I am the only guy that's willing to tell you the truth. Of course those people are like, for sure. And they're taking all of the stuff that makes them uncomfortable, and they're spitting that stuff out because at least he made me feel at peace. But the other thing that's happening that's even more nefarious is that once you agree with the core idea, then the darker parts of that start to seep into your consciousness too, because you're repetitively hearing that darkness as well, right? And it's a tough, once again, it's, if you communicate with folks, and I spent a lot of time during the rise of Trump talking to people about it, you can understand it. But I think on the left, we are so smug and so arrogant and so educated all the time that once we get into that thing, well, if you don't agree with what we're talking about, you're just uneducated, right? They call Trump supporters stupid. Like on TV, they'll be like, you voted for Trump, you're a stupid person.
And then you have people, you have people with platforms that blow up by going and asking some people, like, sometimes some simple questions that they don't know the answer to. But they find a group of people that haven't given much thought, and then they like blow up, and then you think that that's all of the Trump supporters.
Because you could do
It's
that to
like,
Biden
nah,
supporters
you
for
could do
sure.
all day long.
Yep.
And like,
Yeah.
I think the issue is,
I know a bunch.
Right.
You ain't thought about this.
Right, at all.
like, we don't, going back to your like loyalty thing, we don't leave room for people to be like individuals and nuanced, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I believe if I'm like voting for Biden, if I'm voting for Trump, I endorse and agree and believe with, stand in line with all of their policies. And like, that's not the case for me, for anybody I've ever voted for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I don't agree with everything that they like represent or passed and put in the law or anything. Not one person that I voted for.
Right.
So I think that that's where it's rough, because nobody's coming out having an honest conversation during election time. You know what I mean? People are only coming with talking points to try to, again, convince somebody to jump to a side.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
There's no space for nuance
like,
in media.
yeah.
We've lost it.
Yep.
That's over. There is, everything is
believe
hyperbolic.
this.
And I mean, I mean that comes all the way down to even individual relationships. It frustrates me deeply that there is no space for gray at the margins.
Yeah.
It is just always you is or you ain't.
Yep.
Right, and
Yep.
that it's killing. I mean, I think it's what makes me and my relationship with all of my Christian friends so interesting, is that most people that you know, they just don't cross those boundaries. Like you just don't. And then for me to be in a relationship with like a Christian vegan, you know, like it's like, oh my God, like how?
I thought you were a vegan. I thought you were a vegan.
No,
No?
I'm
Okay.
not.
Why'd you think that?
No, that's
So
why
I
I'm
ain't never
getting
seen
all
him
this
eat a
weight.
pork chop. Every time I seen him out, I ain't never seen him eat no
You
pork
see me
chop and no
eating-
ribs.
See me eating steaks and hamburgers.
Same time.
Yeah, at the same time. A steak on top of a hamburger, on top of some pork.
Hey, A1 sauce and ketchup.
You know what I'm saying? I love me a good burger with some pork
Right.
on top. It's,
Speaking of, not speaking of, I want to address something before we end up, before we get off air, because you doing something new to your brand, Ponytail Air brand.
Yeah, Ponytail Air,
and that's you're singing now.
Singing, rapping.
You're singing, rapping,
Right.
making music videos.
Yes.
who knows?
The whole shebang. So again,
Something.
when Dwan and I first looked at this, he was like, wow, this is dope. And then also just how brave it is. And the reason why I say he's brave is because, like, I think I'm funny. But I promise you I'm not about to go do a bunch of comedy on Facebook and post it. I'm not that brave to
Just
do
wear
that.
one of your nice workout shirts.
Right, that's all you need for life.
Just throw your nice workout
You need
shirts.
to
You
like
know what I'm saying? It'll be straight.
I'll be good.
Crack some jokes. Just crack some jokes with your nice.
But but that's what I mean, right? Like I would love to go do some stand up on my Facebook because I think I'm funny, but I would never ever do it because I'm not.
Oh,
that
we
brave
got to get him to do it now, Eric.
I would never
Do
do
it
it.
on
We gotta get him to do it now.
So I give you credit for that, right? But what made you do that? What made you say, you know what? I'm about to start producing some music, making some videos. Especially you're an executive or professional, you know what I mean? And then you know. Now I know one reason.
The world
why.
wants to know.
I know one reason why. Me and him was out at the bar one day. He probably wanted to capitalize off this more. We was at a bar one day. We were both there separately, but then we were just talking.
Oh, yeah.
And the girl came over. She's like, "Oh hey, Eric," pushed me out the way and took a selfie with him. And I was like, and then just walked away. I was like, oh, so when I saw his music videos, I was like, oh, he want more of that. But no, what made you do that?
You know, I used to always say to myself, it was never a thing I said publicly, but it was always like, if I didn't do design, because I graphic design as a thing, if I didn't do design, I'd do music. And during the pandemic, I was locked in my house, and everybody knows I'm perpetually outside. I'm always talking to people, I'm hanging out. I was locked in my house for a year, 2 or 3 months, and I had a piano in there. I had not sat and played for real. I had just started lessons like at the end of 2019, maybe. But when the lockdown stuff happened, I was at home with a piano, and I was like, it doesn't make sense that I have all of this time and I'm not going to do something with it. That was part one. part two was, what does if I didn't do this, I would do this even mean? What is the capacity limit of your ability to be all the things you want to be? Right? Like, you know, like that, it's a...
I like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. And so, first I was playing the piano, and then I started hearing melodies. I was like, oh, I was want to sing a song, but I couldn't sing. I still can't really sing. But I asked one of my friends, he put me to this vocal coach who's really incredible. And then, so I was learning piano, I was learning how to sing, and I was like, damn, I need to make a song. So I was like, well, I guess I gotta learn how to use this Logic, program. And then once again, while I was locked away, I started taking photos and video and all that kind of stuff. And I told myself, and like 2 or 3 of my close friends, I said, I'm gonna give music 5 years to learn how to do it, to get to a place of proficiency. I'm not trying to become a virtuoso, right? I don't need to sing like Jennifer Hudson. My joke is I want to sing better than Drake, rap better than Sexy Red, make better beats than DJ Mustard, right? Like it's not like a high bar.
Right.
It's not a high bar, but it's like a bar.
But it's a bar. It's a bar enough.
They're like, well, these people making some money, so we should be all right.
I like that.
And when I was sitting there and I started the first challenge, which was post on Instagram every day. That was in November. I was like, okay, I'm gonna post on Instagram every day. And I was like, I'm going to make a song a week. And the first week, it was really like a effort. Like I was like, I'm gonna make this beat real fast. I had like 3 or 4 other songs in the can. And I was like, effort, I'm gonna make this song today. I made that song like that day, made the beat, rapped on it, shot the video, posted it, and closed my eyes. Because it was one of those, like fear is a feeling, not a fact. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't stop me. If somebody shoots you, you can't fear the bullet away. It doesn't impact the physical world. It only impacts yourself. So I was like, I'm just gonna post it. And then whatever happens, happens.
Did you do you have that as a bar somewhere?
This fear is not a feeling, it's a fact.
Yeah, it's not
He
a
gonna
fact,
put
it's
his
a
next song. He
feeling.
gonna put his next song and rap it over the beat.
That's definitely a bar.
We gonna hear it on this Friday.
I might talk about it on my, because I also do the daily, idea things that I post. But it's when I post. But here's the thing that always happens on the other side of doing the thing that you're most afraid of. After I posted it, I got all this really positive feedback, because I also didn't post any music until I was proficient enough.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't like, this wasn't like the jankiest thing I've ever done. I did it, I produced, I made the video, I shot stuff. It looked fine, it sounded fine. And most people were like, that's better than we expected. Because what did you expect?
Right.
You expected nothing.
Right.
And every week the goal is to learn something new in the process. And so for the last 16 weeks, I post, 15 songs. I missed 1 week. But it's opened like a couple of doors. It's allowed me to make music with my friends. I'm able to participate in the thing that I love. I love listening to music. Now I can participate in the music. I watch my friends, spend a lot of time just watching my friends play, going to their shows, asking for advice, all this kind of stuff. So now we're able to do music together, which is exciting. I've attracted really talented people. And I love spending time with talented people. So Monday, I was kicking it with a harp player.
Okay.
Tonight, I'm kicking it with a funk soul singer. I'm working on another song. So now I'm able to work with all these people. This other thing is kind of like hip hop and opera. This other thing is funk and soul. This other thing is R&B. And I'm able to play in all of these zones that there were no doors into. And so I've opened an entire new creative universe around photography, video, and music that was just on the other side of a veil that I could have always tapped if I just so decided to.
That's dope.
So love it.
You should get you a joke coach.
And that's a thing.
Get you a joke coach.
And Planet Ant, they do that.
Just start making you a little video. You know what I'm saying?
They do at comedy clubs. They do that. They get you together and teach you stand up.
I think about it. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna watch.
Since you said
I need probably about 10 more weeks of watching Eric. And I'm like, you know what? I got it. So don't skip another week, Eric.
It took me 4 years to post my first song.
Yeah.
It took me 4 years.
Man, well, thank you for coming and share this space with us. Share some time. some of your thoughts on some of these subjects. We're gonna have to get you back out here on the show, and we got to get you on a bike with a suit
Oh my
for
God.
Ride for Equity.
Oh yeah, that would be dope.
Get it on
A bike with a suit. A bike with a suit.
I
No,
ride-
he can have the whole biking outfit on, but just a blazer. His thing is blazer.
I ride bikes with suits on. I need to ride a bike not for
Yeah, get you.
for the comedy of it, but because he keeps getting in shape, he keeps losing weight, and I keep picking up all the weight he done lost. And so I need to go the other direction.
You got a car yet?
No.
Well, you
You
shouldn't
don't
be.
have no car.
No.
Well, you should be good. Riding bikes and walking.
You got
I'm
video
trying to tell
equipment though. Well, that is another episode of Speak for Yourself. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Please like, subscribe, share. Somebody else can hear the dopeness of Saginaw swollenness and ponytail Eric Thomas. Peace.
So you got to flip it. Peace.
That's what's up.
Like if you believe something else, especially if it leads you to do positive things. I'm really in the school of I don't care why you did the good thing. I hear when people are like the billionaire only gave the money to the housing shelter for a tax break.
Okay.
I don't give a damn.
He
What?
still gave it to the housing shelter.
You go ask the homeless people
Right, they care.
if they mad about a tax break.
Right.
If they mad about the sandwiches.